Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the throne room. Hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. We've had a good weekend here in San Antonio. It's been good. It's been good. A lot of good things happened. It was my dad's birthday on Friday, and then my birthday on Saturday. So it was a good weekend. Now we're honoring our fallen soldiers to protect our freedoms that by no means are free. So if you are a loved one, you know somebody that has given the ultimate sacrifice to keep our freedom, I just want to thank you on behalf of the throne room and its staff. Which I'm the only one working this summer, so let's for what it's worth. Hopefully it's a lot. But I know. Welcome back to this week. We're on week 2 of the top 5 series. This week we're going over NCAA quarterbacks, so college football quarterbacks, top 5 at their position. Last week, if you haven't heard it already, we went over NFL quarterbacks, and so go back and watch that if you haven't already. I think it's a good take on the top 5 quarterbacks going into the 2019 season. But this week, very very different, although it's the same position, but very different because the catalysts for greatness are they just vary. They're all over the place. I mean, and you'll understand if you listen back to last week. There's just a lot of different factors that go into everything. There's head coaching jobs, offensive coordinator jobs, different offenses, who has which players on which team, who plays for what franchise. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing you got to think through. So this week we're doing college football quarterbacks, and it didn't take as long for me to come up with this list because, I mean, there's like the top 2, for instance, are no doubt shoo-ins, and they're like interchangeable 1 and 2s, and then the bottom 3 are a little more difficult. In fact, I think 4 and 5 are probably the hardest ones, and I actually put together an honorable mention list because it was kind of difficult to place who at number 5. But we're going to go ahead and start off with the honorable mentions, and we're going to kind of go through some of the catalysts, and see what y'all think about it. So let me know on Twitter or Instagram. You know where to find me. It's on the Throne Room on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to contact me and be nice and cool, follow me on King__Alex__. That's on Instagram, and at AKingBoss99 on Twitter. So here's the honorable mentions. Okay. This is a guy that comes from a team that has had top-tier quarterback play over the last years. I mean, we're talking about like the best school to have a quarterback play at your school in the past 2 or 3, 4 years. So his name's Austin Kendall. He's from Oklahoma. He's backing up probably some of the biggest shoes to fill in college football history. 2 previous Heisman winners back-to-back at the same position, and he's the next man up. That's a big take. I mean, how do you fill Kyler Murray's shoes? I mean, we said this about Kyler Murray going into last season. How do you fill Baker Mayfield's shoes? You know what I mean? How do you feel that guy's role as a quarterback, as a team leader, as a passer and a runner? And Kyler Murray did it. So Austin Kendall goes in the honorable mentions list just based on the fact that he's coming from a team that knows what a quarterback should look like. His offensive coordinator, his head coach that he'll be playing for this year, is elite. One of the elite offensive lines in our game. And so Austin Kendall, we haven't seen a lot of him yet, but if he turns out anything like his predecessors, then he could do some great things, and he's who you have to watch out for going into next season. And then second on the honorable mentions list is Ian Book. Now, I was never a big fan of Ian Book, not because I don't like the guy, but just because he plays for Notre Dame, and they are the most overrated football team that has ever been in the postseason ever. Like, at least in my generation. So in the past, 3-4 decades, that's been the team that has just awful in the playoffs. I mean, you turn the clocks back to the BCS, and when Alabama played them in the national championship, and everyone thought it was going to be a close contest, and Alabama blew them out of the water by 50 points. And then again in the college football playoffs, was it this past year, the year before? I mean, again, absolutely destroyed in the playoffs, not prepared at all. But Ian Book is a good quarterback. He's a guy you got to watch out for. You got to respect what he can do. We've seen him do some great things with his eyes downfield. He's not really a strong runner, in my opinion. He's more of a pocket guy, which, if you've been listening to the show for any period of time, we like pocket passers. We think they're a staple in football. We're not going to not like, dual threat quarterbacks, but I'm just saying Ian Book's a guy that is solid, and he's a good game manager. He'll have a decent season this year, hopefully. Which leads us to number 4 and 5. And traditionally on this series, number 4 and 5 have been quite controversial. Last week for our 5th pick for NFL quarterbacks, we chose Dak Prescott, which obviously is a controversial number 5. There's a lot of other quarterbacks that you could definitely shoe in for number 5, but because of certain catalysts, I put Dak Prescott at 5. He's going to have a lot of offensive weapons to work with next season, and it's going to make him look a lot better. So, this week's controversial 4 and 5, we got Kellen Mond at number 5. And you know what? I know what you're thinking, okay? He's using his A&M bias to, elevate his quarterback. And listen, we've said on the podcast last season, Kellen Mond is nothing special. He's not anything yet that could be looked at, but this is the top 5 list going into 2019. Meaning he's going to have a full another offseason with an offense that is going to be on the come up, going to be just elevated on every sense of the word. And yes, I'm talking about Jimbo Fisher. He's going to have an entire another development period from a guy whose name is Jimbo Fisher. An offensive mind throughout college football, one of the the highest reputation in the land, is other than Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban. So how can you not choose somebody that's going into the season with the experience being handed down to him from Jimbo Fisher? He's going to have a whole nother developmental period with his offense. He's older. He's 1 year more experienced. He played in some very tough games last season, Alabama and Clemson, and he had the closest offensive scoring margin against Alabama all season in the regular season. The only team to get close. It wasn't very close, but it was the closest to Alabama during the postseason, losing to Clemson in a close home game by 2 points. We really should have won that game. He did exceptionally well. He came in just the clutchest performance I've ever seen against LSU in the 7 overtime win last season. If you didn't watch that game, I'm so sorry, but I was there, so you had to know that he did amazing. And he's going to have a receiving core that is immaculate for their caliber as a football team. And so I think he's gonna be an exceptional quarterback this season going into 2019. So Kellen Mond is number 5, and while that pick's controversial, this one might not be. But it literally hurts me on the inside to say my number 4 pick because I put Kellen Mond at number 5. It hurts me to put this individual at number 4. It really does. I cried. Tears came out of my eyes, my eyeballs. I wept putting this list together at number 4. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I'm gonna have to wash my mouth out with bleach, but the guy's name is Sam Ehlinger. Let's just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I know it's hard, but they can't hurt me anymore. They can't. Anyway. Sam Ehlinger out of Texas University. and as much as you have to disrespect that school, you got to respect the guy. He's doing some great things for their squad. I think Texas is one of the most overrated football teams as of the last couple of seasons. I mean, they ranked them way higher than they should have at one point. I think it's evened out now. But, I mean, this guy's pretty good. This guy's pretty good. He's fast. He's well built. He's a big guy. Great arm, good vision, great game manager. But he plays for Texas. So don't give me grief about putting Kellen Mond at number 5 because I have A&M bias, because I just put a guy from Texas a place before him. So, that's off the table. The jury is out. And I'm innocent. Thank you. I don't think that's not the right phrase, but you know what I'm saying. I don't have bias for this list. It's pretty simple. All right. So, we've covered the two We've covered the two controversial individuals. Number 3 on the list is a person who comes from a pretty dominant SEC West school. Pretty solid quarterback for this squad. I mean, they've had a history of quarterbacks exactly like him. Just solid people. Solid guys that are great game managers, that are great throwers, not so much on their legs, but just immaculate game managers. It's like if you took Tim Tebow, cut his skill by 5% and took away his legs, this would be the quarterbacks that Georgia's had over the last, 4, 5, 6 years, okay? This guy's name is Jake Fromm. He's going into his junior year. Big year for him because he might get drafted, he might not get drafted, we don't know. But this guy's freshman year was something to behold. Nearly beat Alabama in the national championship 2 years ago. His freshman year had an insane first half that really opened everything up for Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. Really opened things up, and we saw a lot of great things. He had 3 touchdowns in the first half of the national championship game. He was just blowing the defense out of the water. He was reading an Alabama secondary that is known for its dominance. He was reading it like it was a like a Dr. Seuss book in like kindergarten. I mean, that's how insane he dissected that secondary. So this guy, 2 years later, he had sort of some sophomore blues here and there last season, but I think this season he's fixed those problems. He's adjusted. And I think he's going to have a great year this year. I think he's going to be on the conversation for first-round draft picks at the end of the year. I don't think he'll be considered for a Heisman, but he could, depending on how he capitalizes on this opportunity. And but yeah, this guy is a great game manager. Probably one of the best game managers on this list. He's a great leader. I think he's a very well-rounded quarterback. Which leads us to number 2, and I just said his name. And here's the thing about number 1 and 2 on this list. It's literally interchangeable. Like, they are so close to each other that it's almost impossible to choose a number 1. But it could go either way. I mean, either one of these guys could take number 1 or number 2. So that it is less than 0.00001% differential on these two guys. I mean, that's how close they are, in my opinion. But for the sake of this episode, I'm putting Tua Tagovailoa as number 2 on the list. Second only to Trevor Lawrence from Clemson. And here's why. Tua is a great quarterback. We've seen insane Patrick Mahomes level type play out of him. He extends plays. you think he might be down, but he's not out. He just keeps playing. He has one of